Alrighty guys, and welcome to another track guide video by Carter. For this week in Grand Touring Cup, we are at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We are at the road course with the North Oval configuration, so that's NASCAR 3 and 4 here. And yeah, so let's begin. So this was my flyer lap. It was a 113.870. I'd say it was a pretty quick lap for the rest of the laps I was running. I couldn't really get out of the mid 14s, and I put this one together surprisingly. But yeah, so I'll show you guys how I did it. So right now we're coming off of NASCAR 4 here, getting to the front straight. And as we head down into turn 1, one thing you're going to want to notice here is these four number boards. That's what you're going to use for your braking zone going into turn 1. So what I do is I look for the 2 board, and as soon as I kind of like get past the 2 board is when I start turning in for the corner. And as I'm coming into the corner, I try to shoot for like the middle of this darker pavement. That's kind of where my line is going into the corner initially. And then I try to use this number 1 board here for my braking zone. So I'll initially turn into the corner, and then you'll start to see me brake as soon as I am lined up and ready to hit the corner. So what I do is I kind of shoot for as if I'm almost in line with the 1 board is when I start braking. And then I kind of just like slowly turn in the corner, but again, like I said, I try to shoot for this like secondary line here, or the middle of this darker pavement. Here I go from 6th to 4th, shoot down to 4th, kind of slowly turn into the corner, and I try to look for this curvature right here. And even in this lap, I actually hop over it. So I kind of feather the throttle a little bit just to make sure I'm not turned in too much. But as you can see, I'm doing my turn in right here. And what I like to do personally is I like to kind of use this curb as like, I don't know, a little bit of a jump sort of. So what I try to do sometimes in the Jetta, and you'll see it in a few others, is I try to use the upslope of this curb to put the left side into the air, and then use the downslope on the other side to kind of like catch the car almost. So you'll see me cut this, and I'm kind of on the throttle. I'm actually on the throttle as I'm midair. But if you want to be on the throttle as soon as your car is like basically about to land. But if we look in the chase view here, you can see I kind of get in the air, and I can scoot it over a little bit other way. So I kind of try to use this downslope of the curb to kind of just like catch the car, I guess. Alright, let me put this back to 0. Put this back to -6. Okay. So anyways, as we get back into the cockpit here, so I jump this curb. I'm on the throttle basically mid-corner. My wheel is still locked to the left as I'm full throttle as I catch it back onto the ground. Then for this next one, you kind of get like the little S format here for these first 3 corners. But as soon as I like feel like the car is settled, that's when I start turning in for the second corner here, which again, I try to look for this curb. I may cut it just a tad, but you don't want to cut this one obviously as much as you did the first one. So I give it very light braking here for turn 2, and then just basically try to ride my right wheels right over this flat curb. Sorry, let me put that away. Okay, then as soon as I'm out of the corner, that's when I start to power out. And then this corner for me is a field corner, but I always try to give you a good spot in which to look at. And for me, I think it's probably the bow tie of the Chevrolet sign there. So as soon as I feel like I'm driving straight at it for turn 3 here, is when I start to overturn and go back to the left. Right there. And then I kind of just like lift and coast a little bit here, but the objective of this corner is you want to be as close to this inside wall as you can, and then obviously without hitting it. So yeah, you can see I get pretty close to it, but as soon as I know I'm through the corner, let's just see. Yeah, that's about how close I am to it, which is totally fine. But as I'm getting through the corner, and as I know I'm not going to hit that wall or go wide, that's when I start getting back on the throttle. And then it does kind of look, I know it is kind of skeptical, it does kind of look like you're going to shoot at the tires, but this is where the turn kind of gets back to the straight, so it's a little bit deceiving. But you are able to just power out of the corner, and you can run basically as wide up as the wall here. So that's what I do. I track out to the wall. Now coming into turn 4, going into the corner, I hug this left side as it's a right-hand corner. And what I like to use to look at on the track is this little black runoff here on the left. I drive over it a little bit just to give myself kind of the straightest line into the corner. But as soon as I see, like, let me see. No, that's for turning in. But this one's kind of a feel corner, braking wise. I think for me, I guess if you want a visual cue, it's as these cones on the right are going away. So as you get to like the last cone or the last 2 cones, is when you're going to want to start braking. For this corner, you're going to want to go down from 5th to 3rd. And as I said earlier, you want to kind of use where this black runoff kind of, I don't know, a little bit after where it feels like it kind of runs out is when you're going to want to turn in. I guess it would also be kind of when you go down to 3rd gear. I wrote a really bad note for that one. But as you go down to 3rd gear, you can turn in here. This is another curb that feel free to cut as much as you want. It won't give you a penalty. Or at least when I was testing, it won't give you a penalty. But this is probably the most I cut it here. And be careful, it is elevated there, so your car will get a little unsettled the farther over you go. But I kind of just let my car go over the corner, and then once it's basically through the corner is when I start to accelerate again. So obviously the car's going to be a little wobbly off of the bump, but that's okay. Throttle wise, I think coming out of this corner though, you're going to want to be careful of this. This is what I like to call sticky grass. It's if you run up onto that, it'll basically stick you. And it's really hard to turn once you get too far left here. But also there's a really big bump here that you're going to want to stay away from. So that's another reason why you want to stay as far away from this outside as possible. But I go basically all the way out as I can, and I'm just full throttle as we go up the hill and to the outside of the track section here. So now I'm up to 5th gear, and I kind of use these. What I do for this corner, is I use this right side of the track here. So I like to hug that until I need to actually turn in for the corner. And you're also going to want to look for these cones here. So braking wise for this corner, I look for this 3rd cone here as my brake point. So 1, 2, 3. I even go a little bit past it, but as you can see, I kind of brake, I guess, kind of in between this 3rd cone and this 4th cone. But as I said earlier, you kind of want to follow the curvature of this corner up until you hit this 4th cone. That's when you're going to want to start turning in for your corner here. So I go down to 4th gear here, and as soon as I feel like I'm turned into the corner, I like to use the banking of this corner to kind of take me through. So you'll see me feather the throttle here to try to find that apex as much as possible without hitting it. And then as soon as you feel good about coming through the corner, this one's another feel corner, especially coming out. But on fresher tires, you're able to just throttle out as soon as you're through the corner. Obviously, the older the tires get, the more you're going to want to back up where you throttle out. But I throttle out as soon as I am basically through the apex, and then just use the banking, and the banking should put you through the corner. Now I did talk about with older tires you're going to want to be careful, because with this grass here, this banking stops if you if this curb followed basically all the way through the end of this corner, it stops there. So that's another spot where it'll basically just suck your car if you go off track here, and you'll lose a lot of time through there. But now through these few little S's here up to 5th gear, this is the next corner you're going to want to brake for. For this corner, with my graphics, I look for this little skid mark, I guess. I don't know why it's there, but it's not from any of the iRacers. It's just there on track, I guess. Or I just look for this tiny little tree here, which is a little left of that, but that's kind of where I go straight at here. And then for this corner, I almost try to find the apex, but don't try to hit it. So you'll see me brake down to 4th, and then once I blip down to 4th, that's when I kind of turn in for the corner and just get off the brakes. And I try to find the right amount of throttle in which you find this curb here on the inside, which is a little bit of a late apex corner, but you also kind of, towards the end of this, you kind of want to try to hug the left side or hug this curb on the left here as you set up to get back onto the oval. So I just kind of follow the curb. I give it a little bit of gas just so I can get up there as quickly as possible. And then once you're through that corner, you're going to want to look for when the track feels like it's going straight at the oval. That's when I start braking here. So you'll kind of see the curb on the left straighten out. So yeah, that's when I start braking. I go down from 4th to 3rd, and as soon as I start braking, I turn into the corner here. This curb is very dangerous. You want to stay off it as much as possible. If you need to barely touch it, that's fine. But this curb feels like a mountain, and it can A, damage your car, or B, even flip your car if you hit that curb too much. But anyways, I'm still braking down in 3rd gear. I think I just barely find the curb, but I don't think you want to cut it any more than I do here. But basically, coming off of this corner, what you're going to want to do is the car, if you do end up hitting the curb, the car is obviously going to be unsettled like it is here. As soon as the car feels settled again is when you can get back on the throttle. And I still have quite a bit of track to track out with, which I was surprised I kind of kept it after hitting that curb. But as soon as the car feels settled again is when you're able to step on the throttle, and you can basically go all the way up to the grass. Obviously try to stay off the grass. And then for these last 2 corners, NASCAR 3 and 4, there's a ton of different lines you can run for this corner. But ideally, you would want to run this corner flat out, which means that if you want the best, if you want the best corner speed without losing as much grip in the tires, I guess, or without using your tires as much, you're going to want to swing out for turn 3, then kind of turn in a little later than it seems. As you'll see here, I kind of go almost outside of this darker pavement here, and I kind of just ease my throttle into the corner. Remember, flat out through here. I try to turn in as much as possible, and then I may be a naughty boy for cutting this, but I think it's fine just because it's not really that much different apron compared to the actual track. But I say go for it. If you want to cut it, go ahead. I cut it almost entirely. I don't go all the way to the curb, but I just try to keep my steering input as much as possible through the entire corner so I don't wear the tires as much. And then, yeah, just full throttle out and track out to the outside of the track, and that was a lap around New Hampshire there. So what I'll do now is I will just play a full lap here. If I'll go back to the start, I'll play a full lap of showing my steering inputs, braking, and throttle and all those, and then I'll show a full lap without all of that, just the car. So I'll leave it here. Coming down the front straight here. Coming into turn number 1. Down to 4th. Find the curb. Use the throttle. Find the corner. Power out. Up to 5th for this next one, going outside the track. Down to 3rd. Cut the corner. Throttle out up to 5th. Find the right side of this corner. Brake, little bit of a late apex. Ease on the throttle out. Stay off the grass, stay off the curbs. Brief braking. Find the left side, brake again. Stay off the curb. Up to 4th, no lift. And then cut to your own risk. And track out. And yeah, so that was my 113.87 that I ran. This was just off of a few laps too. This was actually the first session I did here. But I think just a few weeks ago, towards the end of the previous season, we ran here without the North Oval, so I know most of the track just by pure experience. But yeah, so that's one lap around the New Hampshire road course with the North Oval. So I hope you enjoy, and see you on track.